Hello everyone, good time of day to all of you. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Okay, a combination of two great things. Game of the day from the World Championship match. And of course, the Russian Schoolboy live. Well,
Look out for barbarians in
hang
Sid
on a
Meier's
second.
Civilization 6.
There is obviously no way to avoid it, right? I can sit there and pretend all I wanted. There are other more important events, but who am I kidding? Of course, the World Championship match. Always the most anticipating event. And this one features Magnus Carlsen. I don't know how many times world champion. If you add all the blitz and rapid and all that, probably a lot of times already. But importantly is that Magnus has been the best player in the world for about 5 years already. Maybe more, maybe 6 years. And the somewhat surprising challenger Sergei Karjakin. Of Russia, formerly of Ukraine, a lot of controversy. And I read some things. I don't know, you guys saw it. After defending that difficult game 4 2 days ago, where he had white and played some ill-advised idea, traded his central pawn for a flank pawn, and then inexplicably parted with his Spanish bishop. Karjakin found himself in a difficult endgame, which he, true to his resume, was able to save. And then, what was the talk? Maybe you should be appointed the defense minister of your country, Russia. And Karjakin says, yeah, I can do that. No. They always say in the light of whatever the political situation, one has to be careful. And on the other hand, that always seems to be coming from the same direction. And I don't know. I think Karjakin is entitled to say whatever the heck he wants. Well, obviously, I mean, he's a Russian citizen, and whatever you think of that and his country, well, that's his country. My country, right or wrong, right? So that's what he's doing. Maybe he's overdoing this, I don't know. Well, it is hard to tell, but I think we're gonna leave this outside of the scope of our discussion today. Anyway, apparently, his opponent, Magnus Carlsen, is not interested in stirring any off-the-board controversy. So he is thinking of letting his moves do the talking. And today was game 5 of this match. So as I mentioned, Carlsen was inching closer and closer to winning. And game 3, he was able to outplay Karjakin. And, well, you know how it is with Karjakin. He backs down, but not to the very end. And he's going to lash out, and look for some counterplay. When he finally realizes that the passive defense is not going to do the job. And that's the new Karjakin, right? The Karjakin of the last year and a half, maybe. Before that, he was known to rely on passive defense, and that was particularly the black pieces, that was the problem. One example is actually from the candidates tournament where Sergei reverted to this. You remember the game he lost to Anand in the second leg of the tournament. So that was the example. But I mean, he's making a conscious effort. You'll see it today again, in game 5, how Sergei is able to mix the solid play with aggressive counterplay. He's probably still searching for this perfect balance, but he's doing this against Magnus Carlsen. So Karjakin defended. And then he said, well, I'm getting tired, after defending these two tough games in a row. Maybe I could use some doping. And then again, the Russians, the Soviets, the DDR, the dopers. I mean, do you really want this? I mean, I'm not talking to particular people who keep flooding, chess websites with messages, and referring to Karjakin's whatever nationality and political views or whatnot. I mean, who are you people? Who are you? Why do you want this? Why do you want to patronize? And I mean, one guy was saying, but Karjakin is a young man and I like him, but he should realize that Putin is a dictator. I mean, what the hell is this? I mean, who is stupid there? I mean, let's just concentrate on the game. Okay, off we go. E4. Now, it seemed to be the championship match of E4, E5 for now. There is some talk that, okay, maybe I should see the Sicilian. I don't know. Maybe not now. Okay, anybody there? Anybody chatting with me? Or you guys just heard me and Joe Benjamin for 5 hours? Oh, come on. Anyway, alright, and now this. Well, there's two openings. The anti-Berlin Roy Lopez and the old Gioco Piano Italian game, they merged into basically two variants of the same thing. With a little twist. A twist comes here, right? When they play this move. I don't know who invented this move, but it's not even important because I guess, everybody follows the same recommendation by same computers. Come to think of that. We are talking about the Soviet school of chess, right? And there's the patriarch, the Botvinnik. And then you have a lot of these little drones, whatever. And they play each other and they all look over their shoulder. What's the patriarch thinking of my chess? And he says, wrong. Back in 1947, we analyzed this, we analyzed that. A lot of fun, right, to follow this. Here. I don't know who it was. Was it Komodo? Was it Stockfish? Who mentioned A4. Okay. Everybody picked it up. The entire, top 10 in the world. They just play this. You have to look outside of that. We had Hikaru Nakamura who would play Queen H5 on move 2. Not anymore. Not anymore. Yeah. Anyway, I guess that's the computer school of chess. And Komodo is your patriarch. Computer god. Oh, nothing against this move. It's actually quite interesting. It introduces variety of ideas. I guess black in general doesn't want to put the pawn on a5 because obviously he has no chance of perching a knight on b4 because white will put the pawn to c3. Anyway, and then this. Okay, that's a direct attempt at the bishop. So b4 and a5. a6. No, I had this a long time ago. Being against Igor Glak, the Russian grandmaster, and he played this. You know how we got here? He played this, what you call it, Evans Gambit, and I chickened out and I didn't take the pawn. I went bishop to b6. Pardon me. And then he played c3 and we got the structure. I know, I never thought, that in the Italian game this b4 gives white anything, but I mean, actually, in the game, Magnus was not able to. Oh, good, Hanging you here, oh god. Okay, we'll talk. I just want to finish this thought, I thought, in Gioco Piano, White really doesn't want to push the pawns forward. A and B, particularly the B pawn. It kind of makes this foundation of White's position a little shaker. The idea was to play in the center, but I guess they tried. Okay, here, now, question to the English. Kasparov liked to play the English opening. Did he? I think Kasparov was mainly E4 and D4 player. But I mean, obviously, if you talk about the English opening, don't play it anymore. Hasn't happened in this match, but we see a lot of English. Most often what we have, if you recall this match between Anand and Topalov, they had a game or two. Usually, like the dragon reversed, but it's a slow playing, quiet variation. Of course, black doesn't get to castle long and checkmate white. That's reverse Sicilian, right? Reverse dragon. I mean, you can play c4. You can actually play anything. Does Komodo the computer got like before? No, it does not. Even I don't like before that much. Yeah. I just completed. I mean, I'm a little tired. I only got back home last night. Still jet lagging. I spent 3 weeks in Turkey, played the tournament there. It was sort of an old-timers tournament. Guys like Lyubov Fatashnik, Swat Atalek, Branko Damjanovic, Silvio Danailov, Thomas Luther. Okay, not super strong, and probably names wouldn't tell you much, but anyway, maybe because of the nature of the tournament and the guys who played there, or maybe just because, I don't know, I decided to play absolutely random stuff, but I didn't get to play before. I started with c4 or b3, or knight f3. Yeah, I don't know. The English is okay. I actually had an interesting game in round 1 in symmetrical English. Maybe we'll see it in this match. Who knows? I mean, we'll get to this because it's important to feel the flow of the match, because it's always the psychological initiative. Okay, this. Alright, this is your standard Kramnik maneuver. The knight's coming to g6. Alright, so the purpose is to keep the knight on a safer position for protection of e5. And shore up kingside defenses. Clear out for c6 followed by d5. Multi-purpose move. Brilliant. Now, Joe Benjamin was surprised. He expressed his surprise at the move d4. He thought white should keep moving the pieces around like this. But then, to me, it's always the big question is d5. What is going on here? I mean, now, had the pawn been back, then we would be talking knight takes e5, right? I assume. Yeah, but the pawn's hanging on c3. Yeah. Maybe that's the reason why Magnus played d4 himself. I don't know. I need to get better, honestly, in the c4, e5 positions. It's just strange. I played the Sicilian and the various Sicilians, all the Kasparov kind of Scheveningen mix with various move orders. I played a lot of classical knight c6, knight f6 and d6. The opening, the resulting positions in the Sicilian, they weren't exhaustible, but somehow they got exhausted and nobody plays like this anymore. So anyway, I kind of gravitated towards e45 after some stopovers with the Karjakin and some others. But I guess it's just too late. I mean, I just don't have a feel for these positions. No, well, these guys obviously do. So d4. The main problem is that the bishop on c4, right, and the pawn. So already here we're looking at this. We're looking at this thing. Suppose this line. I thought here white has some pressure over there. I actually advocated to move bishop g4. It's funny, right? I'm talking about the pressure on b7, and yet in the same sentence I'm giving up the pawn on b7. I guess there is a question of just trying to start up some counterplay, and it's a standard counterplay, right? The d4 pawn, so I play bishop g4. I looked at this, me and Joel, we looked at this, and white goes d5. White just goes d5. Now, yeah, there is a problem with the f2 pawn, but it's not really such a big of a problem. No, it's not. In this situation, white will maintain the bishop on the diagonal. Oh, that's what happens with the knight on g6, right? Okay, Dr. Tarash said, or at least allegedly said, that the knight on b3, b6 in parentheses, always stands poorly. No, right, all the Sicilians when the knight goes to b3. Maybe. Knight on b6. Anyway, but he never mentioned g3 or g6, right? Because it's closer to the kings. But look at this now. When you look at this position, then we realize that, I don't know, bishop takes, right? That this knight is inferior to the knight on f3. It doesn't influence the center. So from f6 it would have bothered the white bishop. Yeah, but so if the position opens up like this, it would be white's favor. So I was thinking instead to play this move. Now it's interesting, because this kind of stuff, well, now we're talking, right? Now we get this knight involved in a big way. Threatening to mess up the pawns, and of course there is attack on d4 and b4 as well. Maybe black stands okay here. It's interesting that Magnus played h3, played so quickly in the opening. Unbelievable. Unbelievably quickly. I mean, I know the position is standard, but it's not like it has been decided which move has to be played and in what order and which priority. Thank you, Diego, for your kind words. I know I'm awesome. I'm also very tired, so please, guys, lead me somewhere. I just talked about this game for 5 hours and a quarter. 5 and a quarter, yeah. So, ask me more questions. Yeah, and I tell you what, Sergey played c6 and h3. It's unbelievable. Already at this time, Magnus was getting like half an hour ahead on the clock. He played practically without thinking. And that's a shocking move. Obviously, it controls g4. It's very useful. Bishop g4 or knight g4. But what about this? What about the standard operation in the center? d5. I thought d5 would be played. We looked at this. Black stands reasonably well. So he's hitting that pawn, right? b5. I can just keep on taking on b5. Maybe this move. Yeah, we were looking at bringing the knight to c5, but then there is bishop f5 possible. I don't know. I think black should be fine, but Sergei preferred this, and I would give Magnus an interesting opportunity to change the pawn structure and unbalance the game somewhat. Bishop g5. At this moment, right? Well, he didn't do this. It's actually interesting possibility. I misunderstood something. I thought he didn't like f6. And I thought I would like to play this. It's very double-edged, you know. Because d4 and b4, they may become real weak. White's position certainly lacks any solid foundation. What it has, however, are plenty is tactical chances. Bishop c2, queen d3, the diagonal. But maybe this is safer. This I totally didn't see during our live show. I just never thought of this. Now what it does, it changes the pawn structure. Now, the king's weak. Knight will come to c5. Yeah, the knight to c5, that's the way to plug it in, right? Because you can see the black bishop putting pressure against d4. The black queen eventually go against b4. You put the knight on c5 at the very intersection of these diagonals. And you feel good about this, right? And you should be. I think white's better here. I'm looking at this check at the right moment. Maybe the right moment is to wait for the b6 move. Well, one pawn move like this can totally ruin the black's pawn structure. Now the bishop is blocked. And the pawn. The best move would be to bring the pawn back to b7. It's against the rules of the game. Yeah. I'm 100% sure that this is how it works. I mean, black can play some move, I don't know, queen c7, queen d7. He still has the solid foundation in his position, that control over the d5 square. And he had broken up the white center. I don't know, it was interesting, but after some consideration, Magnus chose the line that I kind of half-jokingly suggested, even before anything like this was played. And because I thought, I was gonna say, whenever the opponent plays this knight takes c4 followed by d5, you get one chance to play, to take the pawn on f7. Sometimes you deprive your opponent's king of the right to castle, but most often than not it doesn't work. Well, and here didn't even have to take with the king, right? The bishop pair and compact pawn structure and half open f file. However, Magnus went for it because take a little closer look at this and you begin to appreciate advantages of white's position. Yeah, first of all, he's thinking of playing d5. So that would be real bad news for black. So Karjakin plays d5 and now knight c5. One thing I couldn't understand here is Magnus took a lot of time on knight c5. I don't know if the alternatives, I didn't like this move, bishop g5. I mean, there is this for starters. And then fake tempo gain, right? He's just gonna take on h3. Just not good for white. The other move, knight g5, seemed very fishy. I mean, white's hoping to play some kind of combination of sacrifice on h7 and whatnot. Probably just not solid enough. So anyway, knight c5 was played, and as expected, h6 covering g5, and then this. So here is the move that really makes the difference, because white occupies the only open file. And with the knight on c5 kind of covering the pawn weaknesses, even with the dark square bishop not being active, I think white is... No, white's perfectly fine, of course. I don't know if white is better here, but... I understood what attracted Magnus to this position. I don't know what about knight g5. You can look at this. I just wasn't sure it's so effective. So he plays somewhere here. Now, what next? I mean, to sacrifice, it's not gonna do anything, right? No, it's just silly, He's just gonna do this. Oh, no! No, he's not gonna do this. My bad. Rook a8. I made a terrible blunder. In this line, white simply wins. Checkmate. Oops. Okay. Now I see your point. Was Magnus curious about this? Now we have a situation. We have this check, right? So the black knight prevents the white queen from delivering checkmate. But all the same, it makes the knight paralyzed. And we will open up from the other side. We go this. Wow. Obviously, it's totally random stuff, but... I mean, if white somehow gets to c5 pawn, he can really checkmate. I don't know. Okay, people, tell me, if this... Maybe indeed Magnus was looking at this, but I don't know. I really don't know if that's... So this is what we must do. Okay, I can see that this is insufficient. That is check. We in the knight. Okay, you convinced me. I must take this back and then queen h5. The main reason to put the bishop on f5 is not trying to control the h7 square. It's probably not working out. To bring this rook into play. Is this really a line? Am I dreaming or something? I don't know. Is this really a line? Look at this. It's fantastic. Bishop takes f2 to set up some kind of discovered check. I don't think it's very effective. You need a discover check with this knight to win the queen. What do you think, people? This would be a beautiful story if Magnus played like this. Maybe indeed he just sat there and looked at the stuff, because I couldn't understand why he was thinking for about 15 minutes. Maybe indeed he was trying to make this work. Okay, maybe some other time, the match is still young, only 5 games in. Okay, I'm returning, knight c5. Now this. And here Magnus spent more time. He actually caught up on the clock already with Karjakin. Well, he didn't play this. I thought it would be the main move. Not necessarily with the idea of trading the rooks for the queen. No. Well, the idea was to... If he plays queen to c7, the idea was to go forward. Yeah. Queen c2. To chase the bishop away from this diagonal and attack the knight on g6, because if the knight has to go, then white plays knight e5. If white gets to play knight e5, it's just curtains. It's just curtains. There's nothing to talk about. Why didn't Magnus play rook to e3? You need to ask a computer. No. That's a philosophical question. Why do we need to ask the computer? Why? Are computers our, I don't know, lords and masters? Or our guardians? We just want to play chess, right? Do we even care if it's correct or not? Besides what's correct in computer understanding, we'll get to this. There was one point much later in the game. Well, it may not apply to our human reasoning. Now came this. Alright, Magnus true to his style. Okay. So what's Magnus' style? Magnus likes positions with defined features. Positions where plans are dictated by existing positional factors and are not muddied by excessive amount of tactics. I don't know if I would be satisfied with the move knight e5. Maybe Magnus himself was not satisfied with what he did. Maybe he talked himself into this. It's a world championship match. There is a lot of responsibility there and pressure. Anyway, so white changes the pawn structure. So he gets this 4 against 2, and he's hoping that whatever he has left on the queen side is gonna hold this armada of pawns. And obviously he had to be concerned with this move. Undermining move, it's so typical. Karjakin thought a lot in his response. He ended up not playing a5, he went queen h4, which was the other good move. Now, why not a5? I thought this. The idea is the same, so white needs to set up this e6. Yeah. Actually, it's pretty difficult for black to hold this position by normal means. He may end up losing the exchange. And importantly, white should first start with trading for this dangerous bishop. Now he's just gonna win the exchange. Yeah, the pawns, no, the 3 connected pawns, but they're having a hard time moving because obviously c5 drops the pawn on d5. I guess this is clearly in white's favor. I don't know what sounds like Fischer. I certainly don't sound like Bobby Fischer. Well, if you're referring to sound of the voice, of course. Well, as far as the thoughts about the place of computers in chess, no. Maybe I remember too much. No, I played for many years, for decades. Well, basically relying on what? On my own talent or whatever I could figure out on my own, and some help maybe from my friends to suggest something for me to play in the opening, or I don't know. And there was really no unquestionable authority. Now there is. Alright, so I complain about this, but come to think of that, I myself and a lot of people I knew, they chose to become chess players for some particular reasons. Such as, no, in chess, in the perfect chess world, well, everything's decided by merit, right? You win games and they can't stop you. You may be Bobby Fischer or Gata Kamsky or Sergei Karyakin, and no, talk is cheap, right? So the guy who wins games, he gets to play and move on further, and then becomes world champion, and he says to everybody, okay, screw you guys, I'm the world's best player, and I don't care what you say and what you think. Alright, so that's nice. Something that you cannot really count on in most other areas of human endeavor. Because, yeah. You're gonna have a real hard time proving that your ideas and your thoughts and your concepts are better than others. And, well... Okay, we understand all that, Secondly, chess is this individualistic affair, right? You're not part of a team. You're not a team player. You're not pulling this together, and particularly in the excess of this rah-rah talk, everywhere in the media, propaganda machines, that we are stronger together, or we're moving somewhere together. What's this together thing, What's together? Who says together? Well, I say the flock of sheep, you go together, and they, lamb to the slaughter, together? No. So therefore, the appearance of this computer god, it just kills the whole thing, Now, before that, fine. Okay, maybe there always been people, dozens of them, whatever, maybe hundreds, who could show me, all right, Alex, you're wrong about this, right? You play this and I play that. So we play that, and then in the end, okay, he beats me, and I have to admit that he looked deeper or understood better or whatever, or found a tactical move, or I blundered, but okay, fine. But now, there is no debate about this. I can say, I like something, and people say, but Alex, it's, your evaluation drops 1 point, all right, fine. So what am I gonna do, argue? All right, what I argue next with? My calculator? I know that 2 + 2 = 4. It's just boring. Anyway, so I'm looking at this line, yeah, this is good for white. But it's still not the final proof that a5 is a bad move. Maybe rook f3 was fine. Analysis of Carlsen's favorite type of position. The people, Carlsen's style morphed into this because, because of success. You can't really blame a guy for taking foot off the pedal because he can cost. All in all, Carlsen's track record speaks for itself. He just simply wins. He wins majority of tournaments, and he doesn't win by a large margin, but he wins tournaments. So therefore, his strategy of avoiding risk and just using technical means of winning, it cannot be argued with. It can be challenged. Well, maybe Karyakin's doing this. We'll talk about this a little bit. So anyway, I'm not sure about this whole line, but he played the other move which was highly praised, Queen h4. Now it hits the pawn on b4 and x-rays f2. And alright, this is what Joel said. Counted on this, but then it comes. Oh, it's strange. Indeed. Knight takes is bad, right? Bishop takes and takes that. Wins the exchange. So we take with the rook. And now comes this extremely primitive and effective trade, leading to capture of the bishop and a win of 2 pawns. And I notice, of course, that this is hardly useful. If anything, it's just plain bad, because now white is about to be checkmated. Sort of a ridiculous blunder, right? You know, sometimes a chess player talks himself into playing something, and something tells him that you shouldn't be doing this, and that tournament situation, match situation. And that's something, you know, the reason can be very simple and actually lying just right there on the surface. Maybe indeed it was the e6 move. Now this. First critical moment of the game. Maybe not first. Interesting moment. This tells me a whole story about Karjakin's approach to this. Alright. Why is he going to those positions, defensive positions? Is that because he cannot do anything else? Maybe not. Because the way he handles those positions indicates that he does have chess strength and the confidence to do things when it must be done. Okay, I have it's a theory. I'm not sure I believe in this myself. What if Karjakin, who had time, you know, he sat there with his coaches and friends and looked at Magnus Carlsen, right? And said, okay, Magnus wins because he wins in the endgame. Magnus wins because people cannot defend against Magnus in the endgame. I need to fight against this. I need to fight on my opponent's territory. Okay, instead of trying to run away and play some complex setups, you know, which some people do with various degree of success against Magnus Carlsen. I'm not gonna do this. I'm just gonna let him get his way. But the only difference is I'm not gonna lose those games. And when he realizes that, after I defend successfully a few times, then he would really be damaged by this, and his psychological state is going to be shattered, because he would think, how am I going to win against this guy if I can't win the positions that I normally win? Now, was that by design or just by luck? But anyway, already at the end of game 4, what I read from the press conference indicated that this was how Carlsen felt. That, okay, normally I win such positions. He even said some things. I don't believe in fortresses. No, well, it sounded maybe even a little childish. You know what I mean? You don't believe in fortresses. They do exist. But I understand his point. So he thinks as long as he is in control of the situation and he can keep on improving, you know, he doesn't want to look any deeper and worry about if it's winning or not, because he wins the majority of these games. But the majority of his games are not from the World Championship matches, and the majority of the opponents that he wins against, they're probably not as good as in defense as Sergei Karjakin. But I mean, Karjakin, bishop takes c5. There was no reason to do this, right? Like, why? You have this, you can always take. Well, he had this move. Now the pawn before is hanging for real, right? There will be no more bishop a3. And if white tries to stabilize this Carlsen style, he comes a day late and an hour short. a5 comes. Yeah, you can include e6. I don't think it would make a whole lot of difference. Yeah, no, okay, queen g4 is not the right move. We were thinking white should bite the bullet and play something like this. Well, different story here. Well, I assume, you know, that this e6 and... Okay, maybe it should be played a move earlier. Now you move the bishop and I go back. No, white cannot present a united front of the pawns. Pawn chain from h3 to e6. It's just impossible to do for tactical reasons. Well, in the meantime, one e-pawn is not good a queen. It's probably safe for black. So I really see no reason to do this. Unless, as I said, black is trying to prove a point. Karjakin is trying to prove a point that he can defend any position. Now, inaccuracy. This had to be played right away to trade this rook. And then, after one pair of rooks is traded, probably black doesn't have to worry about getting mated anymore. He just needs to worry about getting steamrolled by the pawns. The difference? Sergei played this, and now very subtle, excellent, typical Carlsen move. Very nice. Bishop e4. You might ask, why not bishop e6? Is that wiser to keep this pawn blockaded and a bishop controlling a diagonal? Maybe so, but what about this one? This is totally unsatisfactory. White will attack and he will bring the attack home. The difference now. Yeah. I don't know. Well, on this, is it possible? What's the deal here? I mean, the white king's so open. I think black's doing alright. Yeah. So he went to e4. And now comes this. And another critical moment in this game. Alright. Joe Benjamin says, white's only chance is to push the pawns forward and make the great pawn chain. He better do it right away, without giving the opponent a chance to prepare and take some countermeasures. And indeed, what's wrong with this? f4. King there. Bishop e4. Okay, granted, you know, f5, rook takes f5 and then mate. But there are tactics. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Obviously, it's a big obligation to move the pawns forward of the king, but well, maybe you can make it work somehow. Perhaps this move is, well, it's just too hasty. I mean, I can always put the rook on g1 first. Probably makes more sense, but that is mildly annoying, right? Indeed. H takes and can't hide the king. Yeah, the king is in. The king gets in the way and allows black to. What about g4 instead of rook f3? Oh no, I thought rook f3 was a great move. The difference was that in this position, he goes to e4 again. Now, we cannot go f3, right? And the queen is ready to appear from h4. That's the problem. No, rook f3 was the right move. Now he gains a tempo on f3, but here king h2. I know, I gotta give Magnus a question mark for this. Well, you see, nobody's perfect. Well, and besides, applying the same strategy basically to every tournament you play, there were some small adjustments, that Magnus took. But in general, his strategy remains the same. So just get a safe position and then move the pieces around back and forth, and good things will happen. But so he missed this chance of advancing his pawns. g4 and f4 right away. Now Karjakin quickly played this move. He must have felt huge relief. No more g4 because this pawn is hanging, and f4. Now it carries the dangerous seeds in it, because now black is just totally assuming the control of the white squares. And I don't think white has even a trace of advantage here. So Magnus, of course, played better than that. He brought his pieces together, and, well, I don't know, queen f1 was interesting. And he played slowly, but okay, we're about to see a good example of Karjakin's active defense. Something that was lacking from Sergei's game for many years. Only about a year and a half ago, he made this important adjustment in his game, and to defend more actively, changed even a little bit in his opening repertoire, and that helped him a lot at the candidates. I don't think he would be able to win the candidates if it wasn't for his active defense. And there's an incredible collection of games given up. He gave up a queen against Caruana, gave up a piece against Aronian, and always finding just enough. So here he doesn't have to sacrifice that much, but he will sacrifice something. First of all, this move. I mean, it's a defensive move to control the f4 square. And all the same, it's an attacking move, because once the black king arrives to c8, then black should probably try to open up the king side and pry open white king's position. Incredibly solid defense. And now this, and then g4. Well, I guess without g4 it would be difficult for white to make progress. Now, according to Benjamin, white's plan consists of the move f4. In retrospect, maybe this was not the most accurate move. But it looked so good because it forces the black rook to a passive position. Then they made the time control, and Magnus quickly played his 41st move, which is for sure it's not the best decision. Well, maybe he wanted to relax a little bit before the next stage of the game. While he was doing this, Karjakin didn't exactly waste his time. Look at the concept. I must admit, I had a difficult time wrapping my mind around it. I understood, of course, bishop to d5, but to give a protected passed pawn like this. This is very thematic, interesting. So came this and then bishop d5. Here is this moment about computer superiority. Everybody there in the game chat was screaming their heads off for rook h8. Oh, I understand, of course. You get to this. Now, long lines. Many moves. In the end, black's better. By how much? By about a point. Well, sometimes you see a position. Computers say, okay, it's plus 1.0. And you don't really understand why, right? Imagine if you have to do the same thing without knowing a computer evaluation after many moves of this grueling calculation when the position is so tactical and where's your safety margin? You have none, right? Things don't pan out, you're gonna lose the game. In reality, 2 holding 3. It's like up 2 pawns. I understand why he played bishop d5. I'll never argue with this move, regardless of what computers will say. The pawn was sacrificed to gain a good square for the bishop. And the move that Carlsen played in reply, I think that's the best move. My understanding was that black will play this just to keep the rook tied down, and then he'll start looking at something like queen b1. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I jumped the wrong way. Okay, let me get back to this position. Happens to me all the time. I'm still operating on Istanbul time. Okay, so what do we have here? It's 8 o'clock and plus 9. Oh, man. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning in Istanbul. Oh, boy, my eyes are closing. Anyway, yeah. So go into this. I don't know if a5 was necessary, but for good measure. People like Carlsen, they love moves like this, a5. They want to make sure that nothing ever happens. The prophylactic thinking is very important for them. But here, the amount of prophylaxis was enough to keep Karjakin down, so he got this. Yeah, I was thinking maybe indeed king g3. But then maybe queen b1. Yeah, that's pretty good stuff. Queen g1 check. So he played this. Pitching the pawn. Now why? Well, opposite cover bishops, you need to open diagonals. Now the diagonal is open all the way to h8, so there is no attack coming from the h-file. In the meantime, white plans to operate on the h-file himself. Good play from Magnus. Now, possibly the most logical thing for Karjakin to do would be to give this check and grab one pawn. White would take this back. Check, I assume. Yeah. And now it's about equal, right? I mean, white maintains his g pawns, but they're safely blockaded, and I don't think black can do much with just one passed pawn over there. Yeah. Instead it went differently, but the outcome was about the same. Exactly the same. The queen went to e7, now rook h2. Obviously looking to play that. I agree with Karjakin's decision not to trade queens. In the endgame, only white can push. So this is a better move, preparing some, various attacks, be it rook f8 or rook e8. Well, Magnus played a good move. Now, there is a fascinating line offered by John Spielman. He says, if this, then check, and then I'm gonna counter your attack by sacrificing a rook. It's brilliant, right? Pin. It's brilliant, and it's also doesn't win the game. Or Carlsen messed up his score sheet and decided to play an extra move just to be sure. That's why the lousy move King G2 on move 41. Arguably the move which was the most difficult to understand. I found King H2, but a mistake on move instead of immediate G4. On move 27. But at least it's like vintage Carlsen. He plays like this. But King G2 on move 41 was vintage nobody. It was just almost seemed like it was played by accident. Thank you for explaining this. Yeah, press conferences are useful to watch. Yeah, this is a great find, right, from Spielman. Maybe it's not the only way to do this, but you think, like if you let the king escape to a7, and then eventually he was gonna do some checks and bother your king. How can white win this? Queen the pawn. It's unrealistic. There is always that. J8 is under control. So anyway, instead rook f8 was played, and it gave Magnus a chance to play rook h7. But it was not a blunder on Karjakin's part. He played it by design, and because he saw a draw. And Carlsen saw it too and decided to accommodate his opponent's wishes. Indeed, if you look at this, despite the seemingly substantial gains by the white king, in fact, this is going pretty much nowhere. Maybe, okay, let me step back a little bit. Yeah, king there, but it doesn't matter, right? So he waits, and you drive your pawn all the way. And he waits again, and now what? If you do this, then your pawn is pinned and you're making no progress. If you do this, then he brings the king in front. Once he brings the king in front, your long and arduous journey will nature the b7 pawn, but the black king is in front of the g pawn, and the bishop cements the whole thing with bishop b5. No, well, Carlsen knew it. Draw agreed. Alright guys, so this is my report actually on today's game 5. Bishop h6 before g5. I don't know what position you're referring to. Guys, seriously, well, it's been a very long day, you know, so I hope I'm being in a better shape, you know, next time I do this. I think I'm doing this on the 20th, which is Sunday, yeah. Alright guys, I'll see you then, you know, really. Well, time for me to get some shut-eye. Alright, thanks for your attention, and we'll be watching this match that it's getting a little tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, so... Well, good World Championship match so far. Take care guys, goodbye.